All right, I think that we are live. But let me kill some time for some of you guys to come in. Let me just kill some time over here. I wasn't sure if I was going to come on today. It is the second day of the new year. But in any case, I'm not much of a partier. I get tired by that very, very quickly. Happy New Year. How do I respond to you? Happy New Year, blessed Happy New Year. I guess a lot of people are still enjoying their new year. Because, wow, this is the least number of concurrent viewers that I've had since I've started this new streaming or live streaming era. How's your New Year's, blessed? What did you do? Alright, in any case, I'm just gonna start any moment now. Alright then. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, Sam Witch 62548. Anyway, let's begin in any case. Saturn in the 6th. Alright then, so first and foremost, having Saturn in the 6th house means, in short, freedom from the significations of the 6th house. Why freedom? Because anywhere Saturn sits, Saturn limits and restricts the significations of that house. Sometimes it restricts them so much that it literally brings upon the opposite significations. So what we're going to be reading in this document is that, though generally speaking the 6th house is a house of labor, service, difficulties, trials, enemies, disease, etc., because Saturn sits there, it basically limits all of those significations. So you're a person who doesn't have any trials, who doesn't have any labor, who doesn't have any enemies. But we'll go more into detail. Saturn is the planet of prediction. As it studies the past and how the events of the past have caused the present, and then it studies the many factors of the present to predict how that will create a future. So having Saturn in the 6th house could suggest that one minimizes conflict, as the 6th house is a house of conflict, by predicting opportunities for conflict and coming up with solutions beforehand. This way one does not gain enemies over time. Saturn in the 6th also suggests that one takes one's health seriously long before one has any actual health issues. One, again, predicts the end results of certain nutritional and lifestyle practices and makes those changes before anything negative happens. So, one works out regularly and eats well, but one is also not obsessive about these things. But the Saturn in the 6th house could also be someone with an immune system so strong, so robust, they have never known ill health. And so the reality of sickness and disease is completely foreign to them. This person eats whatever they want and drinks whatever they want and takes risks with their health and never falls ill. But the opposite could also be the case if Saturn is badly placed. This could be an individual who could have never known well-being, as they are always falling ill, and may even have a chronic illness or several of them that they can never get rid of. In this house, Saturn may totally deny disease, or it may totally deny good health, and this depends on its disposition. And so we were basically reading like two opposite things right now, right? Someone could have Saturn in the 6th house, and for them it can mean that they're always predicting ill health in their future, that they impose upon themselves in the present very restrictive practices. They work out, they eat well, they could even be hypochondriacs because they're always predicting and anticipating negative health. And because of that, once again, they are very concerned with nutrition and lifestyle. But another opposite signification, another opposite interpretation of Saturn in the 6th house could be the case, which is the person could literally have a health that is so strong and a body that is so resistant to disease that they literally eat whatever they want and are completely reckless with their health. And Saturn in the 6th will literally protect them. That is something else that it could mean. All right, I just received an important text message. In any case, okay, let's continue. Oh, let me check the chat real quick. 7 concurrent views, 2 people in the chat. Guys, if you have any questions, you guys already know, ask and ask away. Let us go back here. Someone with Saturn in the 6th is good at reducing their own problems and workload, obviously. And they enjoy having a very tidy and very organized life and refuse to be inconvenienced by other people's problems and issues. Because remember, the 6th house is the house of problems and issues. Someone who has Saturn in the 6th, Saturn also being the planet of all the things that we dislike, all the things that we want to avoid, and all the things that we want to run away from and minimize. Someone who has Saturn in the 6th hates problems, hates inconveniences, hates conflicts, and tries to reduce them or avoid them as much as possible. So, Saturn in the 6th house individuals love peace and know how to create peace in their own lives. They are, of course, well scheduled to reduce surprises and sudden issues, and they do not like the unexpected to occur, like phone calls in the middle of the night or uninvited guests. Saturn in the 6th also restricts the 8th house of sudden events. So again, because Saturn influences both the 6th and the 8th, this individual is very good at predicting problems, even sudden things that could go wrong, because it, again, restricts the 8th house. And the 8th house is the house of, again, the unpredictable. The 8th is literally the house of the unpredictable, and yet somebody who has Saturn in the 6th will try to predict the unpredictable to, again, always keep themselves safe, always live in a world of peace, and to never be affected by those things, by those significations. So, this person may live a life that others may even call boring, because adventures, ruled by the 3rd house as Saturn aspects the 3rd, are restricted, and surprises and sudden events, the 8th house, are also severely limited. This person may live a very predictable life, completely free of chaos. But it may also suggest that you are someone who does not have a lot of friends. Why is that? True and loyal friends, actually, let me finish the sentence, excuse me. But it may also suggest someone who does not have a lot of friends, a lot of true and loyal friends, a lot of ride or dies. Whereas the 3rd house is the house of communication that also extends to the creation of friendships, the 6th house is more specifically related to best friends, people who truly have your back, people who would truly defend you, support you, and fight for you. So because the Saturn in the 6th person very much minds their own business and is wary of burdening themselves with other people's problems, what this means is that other people don't really feel like the Saturn in the 6th house person truly cares and values them enough to suffer a little bit of inconvenience in order to help them. Funny enough, Saturn's 10th aspect lands in the third house, which is also related to friendship. And so this house is again limited and restricted. Saturn in the sixth may be unwilling to fight someone else's battles or help the other person in fighting their own battles. To love is also to suffer. Let me even make this part bold and even underline it. To love is also to suffer because one shares the burden of living with those whom one loves. Let me also bold and underline this. But if you are so resistant to inconvenience and to suffering that you're not even willing to help the people closest to you, you will find yourself abandoned by them, and eventually you will find yourself very lonely. All right, let me check the chat real quick. All right then, not a lot of people here. What does the universe want you to know? Bro, I don't know what the universe wants you to know. I'm very sorry to say. Actually, guys, give me a few seconds because this is a really important text message that I need to respond to. Said live. All right then, done with that. Let me read the chats again. Someone said, Oi, hola, tudo bem? Can Saturn in the sixth give long life, seeing as it restricts the eighth? Yes, Saturn in the sixth can give somebody a very, very, very long life. Not a very exciting life, but a very long one. All right, let me go back. Anyway, but there is another expression of this, an expression that can have friendships and other relationships. This individual, if Saturn is badly placed, may be so afraid of conflict and so anti-drama that they may avoid confronting others and try their best to simply accept situations as they are. They may teach themselves to tolerate bad behavior, teach themselves to forgive others, and simply try their best to learn how to coexist with people who have difficult personalities instead of trying to, again, confront them and force them to change. So again, the sixth house is a house of conflicts. The sixth house is a house of drama because the most common type of conflict that most people experience in the everyday life is drama. Office drama, high school drama, drama with your siblings, drama with your friends. Really, the sixth house should also be called the Saturn. Are we back? I hope we're back. Anyway, what I was saying is drama, gossip, misunderstandings, passive aggressiveness. These are the number one type of things that people deal with on a day-to-day basis. And what I'm trying to say here is that someone who has Saturn in the sixth, they will try to, avoid any type of drama. Anytime they encounter someone with a bad attitude, they may try not to confront them, things like that. They will try to keep the peace, if only superficially. I'm not sure if we're going to really take a long time in this live. I think this is going to be one of my shorter lives because I actually have to go. Something just happened. Going back to that text message that I received. Anyway, this could be a position of a recluse because this individual never wants to get messy, never wants trouble, never wants confusion, and also abhors the hustle and bustle of everyday life. This person of Saturn in the sixth is not ideal for those who are hard workers because, again, Saturn in the sixth reduces and limits all the significations of this house of labor. Because Saturn is the signification of slaves and servants. One of the ways in which this person may reduce their own labor is by having a lot of hired help. Going on. At its best, Saturn in the sixth is actually a position of a wealthy person, a noble person, or in general, someone who does not need to work, as all their day-to-day affairs of cooking and cleaning and general labor are taken care of by the endless army of slaves and servants that they may possess. This position, especially after the Saturn return, promises a life of great ease. However, if Saturn is badly placed, the reason why this person doesn't work is either because they can't get a job or they have some serious health issue that literally gets in the way of them making a living. As you can see, one way or the other, for good or for bad, Saturn in the sixth may limit an individual's labor. Because Saturn in the sixth aspects the third house from its 10th aspect, one's vitality is minimized, suggesting again that the native with Saturn in the sixth makes use of servants. But again, if Saturn is badly placed, it can mean that the individual is simply lazy and does not possess the physical strength or mental strength to perform tasks. Someone who has Saturn in the sixth could have things handed to them, again with very little effort. This is someone who may ascend to great professional heights with little to no effort, either because other people have done the work for them or because they have found a way of working smarter and not harder and have taken many shortcuts. Alright, back to the chat. Back to the chat. Is this a better placement than Venus in the sixth? Yes, this is a much better placement than Venus in the sixth. You want to know why? Because Venus is a benefic. Benefics always increase things. Astrologers generally say that malefics and malefic houses are the best things, because malefics are planets of reduction and negativity. And so literally, when you have a malefic in a malefic house, it reduces or negates all of the negativity already in that house. The 6th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house are negative houses. They're Dushtana houses. And so if you have Saturn or Mars there, it's awesome because all of those significations are literally reduced. So yeah, Venus increases things. And so you have Venus in the 6th house, you may have a life of quite a bit of drama. There's quite a bit of drama in your life. But you're also probably very, very good at conflict resolution, because Venus is a planet of passion. And it's also a planet of knowledge. And so, even though you have more drama and more issues in your life than the average person, you also have a greater capacity for dealing with those things, because Venus will literally bless you with the intelligence to deal with those things. So yeah, Happy New Year, Moonlight. Nuza9628. Oh, thank you so much for this donation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know how much that is, and I do not know this currency. But you know what? Even if you sent me pennies, I'd be very, very grateful. So thank you so very much. It was very, very kind. Very, very kind. Let us move on. So, like I said, this stream is probably going to be a little bit fast. A little bit short, I mean, because, yeah, apparently I have to be somewhere. So I'm very, very sorry about that, you guys. I was not expecting this. Anyway, Saturn in the 6th reduces an individual's responsibilities, or even his sense of responsibility, which can produce an individual who is childlike, or actually even childish, up until adulthood. This person may not know how to take care of themselves. They may not know much about the world and how it works in a practical way, may not know how to pay their taxes or how to cook or how to operate practically within the world, because they live a life where they don't have to concern themselves with day-to-day affairs. They are free from the everyday. This is one of the reasons why having Saturn in the 6th is so awesome, because let's be real, so many of us would basically like to live like children. So many of us do not want responsibilities. So many of us do not want to clean after ourselves, etc., etc. And so having Saturn reducing and negating all of the aspects of the 6th house, it frees us to be children. Saturn in the 6th house makes children for life. You become a child for life. Sounds pretty awesome. Saturn in the 6th suggests that the individual can live a life of ease and play, and if it's really well placed, then one remains forever a child. one remains forever a child. What affects the masses does not affect the individual with Saturn the sixth, because he is buffered from the trials of the everyday man. So even if the economy is bad, or the political world is chaotic, one remains safe and buffered. It can even be hard sometimes for someone with Saturn the sixth to even relate to the everyday person, simply because they don't share the same struggles as them. So actually, because the burdens of life are reduced, Saturn in the sixth can be a position of a lot of freedom and a lot of fun for the native. The sixth is a house of duality because it creates black and white distinctions between friends and enemies, health and disease, rich or poor, good and bad. But since Saturn denies these significations, it suggests that the individual struggles to tell the difference between a friend or foe, and can instead see goodness within bad and evil within that which purports to be good. This individual is not a black and white thinker, does not discriminate between groups of people, and tries to be empathetic with everyone, regardless of their background. This is someone who practices to remove their prejudices and tries to not judge others. This person does not like to pick sides and actually can be thought of as a good judge because they see all things and all people equally. Alright, so this is another awesome signification of Saturn the sixth. The sixth house is a house of separation. Of all the houses, it is the house that separates people the most. And actually, going back to this individual over here who has Venus in the sixth, where are you? Going back to this person that says they have Venus in the sixth, because the sixth house is the house of separation, having Venus in the sixth can be a bad placement because, well, quite literally, it means that you separate yourself from the person that you love, you know. Yeah. Whereas a lot of people, they're very simplistic in their thinking. All right, let's talk about politics, for example. You know how in the US, for instance, there are many people who are left-wing, and they're so left-wing that anything any right-winger has to say, even if it makes sense, they completely reject. Same thing goes for the right-wingers. There are many right-wingers that are so right-wing that they will literally reject a speaker or an intellectual if they're left-wing, even if that person is making sense, because they've already programmed themselves in their mind. I'm a right-winger. And so they completely reject anything that any other side has to say. Think of somebody who is atheistic. Many atheists can sometimes be unreasonably suspicious of people who are religious. Think of people who are religious. They are always, very stubbornly within their own faith. You know what I mean? The sixth house is a house of separation. It's a house of us against them. You know what I mean? And that way of thinking is not always the most intellectually honest way of thinking. That way of thinking can really limit you a lot. You know what I mean? That way of thinking, you become incapable of really absorbing the wisdom that somebody else may have because you've labeled them already. That person is an atheist. That person is a Muslim. That person is a left wing. That person is a right wing. You separate people so much that you can't really absorb what they have to say. And so when somebody has Saturn in the sixth, what suggests that those elements of division, they're annihilated. When you're somebody who has Saturn in the sixth, you no longer divide collectives. You no longer divide people. You no longer separate people into these silly categories. You're capable of empathizing, understanding, and also drinking the wisdom that different types of people have to share. Anyway, let's go on. So this individual does not believe in a world where some people have and some people have not. Where there are privileged and where there are underprivileged, to them, all people deserve equal opportunities. This person may not like belonging to groups and may not enjoy openly identifying as, again, right-wing or left-wing, or in general may not enjoy displaying any allegiance to any sort of group. They value neutrality. On the other hand, this may be an individual who, no matter how much they try to integrate a group or team, that very same group rejects them or makes the barrier to entry very difficult. The individual with Saturn in the sixth may feel like an outsider and may resent this position because they may feel lonely and without any support. So as you can see, one way or the other, the significations of belonging to a group or clan is denied to this individual, whether they choose it personally or if it is a decision that is forced upon them. This is also a position of a spiritually inclined individual. Not only those, shit, excuse me, not only does such a one have the freedom to pursue deep spiritual practices like fasting, meditation, and other such things, owing to the fact that they have the time and resources to do so, since, like we said, their daily affairs are all taken care of, which gives them the freedom to pursue other things, but also because when Saturn sits in the sixth, it can so deny the significations that it can literally pull out the opposite significations, as the opposite for a concern for the material plane is an interest in the spiritual plane. Because this person is not blinded by blind fidelity to a group or preoccupied with winning arguments for the sake of winning, this person is interested in truth and are capable of seeing into the truth of things. The sixth is again a house of conflicts and battles and enemies. Another way that Saturn in the sixth could reduce these significations is actually by making the native so strong that literally people are too intimidated to actually attempt anything against the native. Because again, Saturn is a planet of prediction, anticipation, and so Saturn would prepare oneself ahead of time in order to not suffer the significations of the sixth. Someone with Saturn in the sixth could overly prepare themselves years before actual challenges arise. And so when they actually do encounter difficulties in life, they don't suffer as much and actually breeze through hard times. All right then. All right. Almost 30 minutes. This has to be like the shortest live that I've ever done. Oh, it's Indian rupees. Oh, okay, cool. Yes, Saturn in the sixth is giving Nepo baby. Oh, does she? Oh, thank you for that. Saturn in the sixth, people depress. No, I would not say that this is a position for depression. I would not say that this is a position for depression. I would say that this is a position that can give people the opportunities for a lot of happiness. All right, guys, I'm very, very sorry for the short stream. This stream has been less than 30 minutes. This is not something that I'm gonna be doing habitually, but I really, really do have to go. Very, very sorry. But thank you guys all so much for participating. See you in the next one.